Kruskal Wallis age test is the non-parametric alternative of analysis of variance. So students, in analysis of variance, we usually would have to compare that whether the means of all the samples or the groups are they identical or different from each other. But one of the assumptions that is to be fulfilled under analysis of variance is of normality. So, if the normality assumption is not met with the samples, then we will have to look for the alternative non-parametric test. And for this purpose, we will be using the Kruskal Wallis age test that is used to test that whether the various groups they come from the identical populations. So students, I've already taught you that how to test the equality of several groups in SPSS through Kruskal Wallis age test. So now we would explore it further, and I would be explaining the procedure for testing the equality of the several groups. So the problem in hand is, it is the data about weights in kilograms of the three groups. It is being shown into this table. You are required to test the hypothesis that the three groups are drawn from the identical populations. So students, here we are given with three groups, and we would have to compare these three groups that whether they are being drawn from the same population at alpha 0.01. Now the procedure under SPSS is, students, you have already learned that you need to define two variables. One is the weight variable, where we got together the weights of all the three groups. Then further, we have defined another variable with the name of group, where we have instructed the SPSS that which weights are for group 1 and the rest of the weights they are for group 2 and 3. So for the first 5 observations, we have assigned a value of 1 to the first 5 weights, then value of 2 under group to the next 5 weights, and for the last 5 weights, we have assigned a value of 3. Now the procedure we need to follow under SPSS is, if you look at the topmost bar of SPSS, here you would have to click on to the Analyze button. Further, under the drop-down list, you would have to choose non-parametric test. And under the non-parametric test, students, you will have to click on to the Legacy Dialogues. Once you have clicked on to the Legacy Dialogues, students, आपके सामने एक और drop-down list appear होगी, and you would have to choose for K independent samples. Students, if you remember, all these three weights, they were being drawn independently. So these samples were independent of each other. So as we have three groups and we wanted to make a comparison between the three independent groups, so we chose K independent samples option. Once you have clicked onto it, so this particular window would appear before you. Here you can see on your left there are two variables that are appearing. One is the weight, जहां आपने तमाम weights को already enter किया हुआ है इसके अंदर observation, and further the next variable is the group. So students, ये देखिए first 5 observation जो थी वो group 1 की थी, next 5 were from the group 2, and the last 5 observations they were from group 3. If you look at the bottom, under the test type, you have 3 tests that are appearing. One is the Kruskal Wallis age test, next is the John Kerr Terpstra test, and lastly we have the median test. Now we are interested to test this particular hypothesis of comparison between the three groups using the Kruskal Wallis age test. This is the default setting, by the way, under SPSS. So you would be going with that. For the students, you would have to take this weight using this arrow button to the right under the test variable list. आप इसको right side पे लेके आ गए. The next variable was group that was appearing on the left of this window. उसको students आपने ये arrow button को use करते हुए you have moved it under the grouping variable. Once you have moved that, आपके सामने ये देखिए 2 question marks show हो रहे हैं. So you will further would have to click onto the define range. Once you have clicked onto that, this window would appear before you. several independent sample where you would have to give the range of the grouping variable. But students say कि यहाँ पे range जो थी, the minimum value for the group was 1 whereas the maximum was 3. So मैंने minimum में 1 enter किया, then I would have to enter 3 against the maximum value. Further, you will have to click onto the continue button. And lastly, once you have defined all the groups, you will have to click onto the OK button. So that completes the procedure for Kruskal Wallis age test that is used to make the comparison between several independent samples.